Hey, it's Oxi, and in this video we'll be taking a look at some of the new features in the Oxi One MkII. Now we'll take a look at the generator, the repetition engine, and the accumulator. Okay, we'll start with the generator. To get to the generator, you press this button here, it says Gen, and you get this menu. You have your Euclidean pattern generator with density, and you have your node randomization. So we'll start with the Euclidean pattern generator. I'll start the playhead. There are 0 steps now. We'll add 1. That's 1. Add 2. You get 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7, and so on. You get the idea. I will go back to 4. You can rotate the pattern, so you can basically move the pattern forward on the grid or back. So the first step wraps around and goes backwards. So we can go back to the beginning. So you can also invert the Euclidean pattern. So if I now invert, you get the inverse of the pattern. And back to the normal non-inverted pattern. Now the density seems to add just more steps in random places. There. You get one more here, and one there, and here, and there, and they get more. If you go back, you'll get a different pattern. Okay, so you can also go backwards on the density, so it'll randomly remove steps. Go back, and it will remove different steps. So that's more random. Now let's move on to the node randomization feature. We'll keep our 4-pulse pattern here, and we'll randomize our nodes. 1 step maximum randomization, nothing's happening. I can turn the node randomization, and every time I change one of these parameters here, we get a different randomization. So this is destructive, I think. So you can't get back to the exact same pattern unless by chance. So we'll randomize by 75%, maximum 2 steps, maximum plus 3 steps, maximum plus 5 steps, maximum plus 7 steps. So basically now you could have an octave here. So you think of the steps as not as basically half steps, as nodes, but as steps on the grid. So if you set it to 7, that's plus 7, maximum is here. Now we can add octave randomization, so that some of the nodes will jump an octave or 2. You can go plus minus 1, plus minus 2. So you get quite a bit of variation here. And every time you change these parameters, the pattern changes. So when you get something you like, okay, let's say I like this pattern, now I can still go and edit this manually. So if there's one note I don't like, I can just change that Now we can add more pulses. So it seems to always be the same pattern of notes. So when you change the Euclidean settings, it appears that your note pattern will not change. So you can always get back to your original note pattern. Let's move on to the repetition engine. So to get to the repetition engine, you hold your step and press the page button here. You get the step submenu. Now here you have repetition. Just press play. There are no repetitions, so it'll just play once. We'll add 2 repetitions, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we'll spread them out using the duration. So we'll have 2 steps, over 3 steps, over 4 steps, 5 steps, and 6 steps. Let's move on to the scatter parameter. I don't know what they actually call it, but I call it scatter. It scatters the repetitions unevenly. You can also go negative. So you get a more interesting rhythmic pattern here. We'll leave it at 12%. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the note range parameter here. I press play. We have our repetitions. Now when I set the note range to +1 step, the repetition engine will basically randomize the note of the repetition step by maximum this amount. So +1, it will be maximum +1, maximum +2, +3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each time it will randomize the note pattern. Now the repetition probability here will obviously change the probability of triggering the repetition. So now it's 50%. So there's a 50% chance that it will trigger the repetitions. Okay, you can also set it lower or higher, and you can also set conditions that the first time it will trigger and the second time it won't trigger. And all these different variations. On the third. Now you can also use flow to trigger the repetitions. So we'll start with 100% repetition probability. Let's change that to flow. So Now it won't trigger unless I hold down flow button. And you can also set it to not trigger when you hold flow. Okay. Now you also have an offset parameter in the repetition engine. So we'll start the repetitions. You can basically offset your step. Okay, let's move on to the accumulator. Now I think the best way to demonstrate the accumulator is to set 2 steps here, and we'll set the pattern to be 8 steps, and we'll start the playhead. Now to get to the accumulator settings, you hold your step and you press the page button until you get to the accumulator menu here. Now you can set your maximum and minimum accumulator range, so the note range, and then you just set the amount of accumulation. So +1, you can see the total here rising every time the step is triggered until you get to +7, and then it starts from the beginning. Now you can also set this to accumulate basically the amount to be higher. Now we'll set the minimum to be -7. So once it gets to the maximum, it will start from the bottom up. Now the accumulator mode determines basically how the accumulator behaves when it gets to the end of the the end of the range. So we'll press play. We have wrap, and it wraps around, and then it goes back up. If I set it to -1, we'll go the other way. And once it gets to the end of range here, it'll start from up, going down. Okay. Now we'll set the mode to, I think this is pendulum, because it will do this. Goes up, 4, 5, and then it goes back down. And it goes down until it reaches the end of range. And then it starts going back up. Okay. Then we have clip. What I think this means is that I will set this to +2. It will start, I think it will simply clip the value when it reaches the end of range. So it will basically, no matter what the value here is, if we have 3, it will always start at the minimum when it's going up. Now there's a random wrap. So basically, this will determine the wrap point at random. So I think the maximum will be these, but it will basically be random. It will wrap wherever, at whatever value basically. And a random pendulum will, of course, have the pendulum pattern, but it will turn back at a random value. So it changes basically it changes the maximum and minimum value at random. There's a random clip, which will of course clip the value at random, and there's a hold, so it will accumulate until it gets to the maximum value, and it will hold there. We can go back down. It will go to the minimum value basically and hold there. Okay, we'll look at the trigger parameter next. So basically we can have our repetitions here spread out, go into the accumulator and add accumulation. Now when you have trigger set to all, we'll set the mode to wrap. When you have the trigger set to all, the accumulator will be triggered by all triggers. We can change that to step, so it will only trigger the actual step. Or we can set it to trigger with repetitions. Now this mode resets the accumulator every time. So we can probably set more repetitions here, like this. Get like an ascending pattern. And one more. Okay. So we can also set the minimum and maximum values to get a different kind of pattern. And we can also set it to trigger with, or not to trigger at all. Now the accumulator also has the probability settings, so you can accumulate 50% of the time or with 50% probability. Accumulation, accumulation, no accumulation, no accumulation. So you get the idea. You also have these conditions here every basically first round of 3, or every second of 3, every third of 3, and so on, and you have your flow settings here. Okay, that's it for the generator, the repetition engine, and the accumulator. Now, some of the features are less obvious, at least for me, so I didn't really go through them. I'm not sure what everything does exactly, but I think I have a decent idea on the basics of these new functions. Now, these are new for the Mark II Oxi One. They are not available on the Mark I. So I think these are really usable sort of generative features that basically make it easier to make more rhythmically and melodically interesting patterns. So I'm looking forward to playing with them more in the future and seeing what I can come up with. Okay, if you're still watching, thank you for sticking around, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye!